Just break out of that there because the Greens leader Christine Milne has just begun a media conference in Melbourne. Let's take a listen.
That's what we need. We do not need a complete fetish on motorways and shovels. That's why we need to have reinstated in this year's budget substantial public transport projects for our major cities.
Our cities are really under stress. People are feeling it, they're stuck in traffic, congestion is really hitting them hard. It's known worldwide that the only way to solve congestion is to be investing in public transport. To try and solve congestion by building more freeways is like to try and solve obesity by letting out your belt. And yet Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister, has committed $7 billion to mega tollways. We want to see that money reallocated into public transport projects, and we have a suggestion of the $3 billion that is currently allocated to the East-West link here in Melbourne should be put towards Melbourne Metro. There should be funding for light rail projects in Sydney, funding for rail projects in Perth, and light rail projects in Perth, and funding for rail in Brisbane. These are the sorts of investments that are really going to unlock our cities and create healthy, livable cities that are going to be healthy and livable for the future.
And just on, not only do we need livable cities, but here in Melbourne we should be having a train out to the airport, not more freeways and expanded roads. But there's also evidence out today from our leading medical and scientific community showing that as a result of global warming, we're going to see the spread of disease around Australia in a way that we haven't previously. Our doctors are calling for a special institution so our scientists can inform us, for example, what is the likely spread of mosquito-borne disease like dengue fever. How far south is that going to come? What sort of impacts are there going to be? Also, what are the impacts going to be for fresh water and food security? But that requires our scientists to be funded for research and development, for a real focus between the community's public health, our medical system and our scientific community. But our scientific community has been under stress as never before because of this anti-science Abbott government. And Adam just wants to make some comments in relation to that.
Yeah, thanks, Christine. This Abbott government has cut spending on science and research to the lowest level since we started keeping records, and that's included taking the axe to CSIRO, and now staff at CSIRO are saying they've had enough and they're beginning industrial action. Well, the Greens support the scientists and researchers at CSIRO because they do work that is critical to Australia's well-being, to our environment and to our economy. This upcoming budget needs to save science and respect research, and the government needs to reverse the CSIRO funding cuts and offer a fair pay deal to the staff at CSIRO. If Tony Abbott can give our Defence Force personnel a real pay rise without asking them to lose conditions, he can do the same for our scientists too. So we support the scientists and researchers at CSIRO, but they shouldn't have to go on strike in order to get a fair deal. The government should be giving it to them.
And just before we go to questions, I just wanted to make a comment in relation to the execution of Andrew Chan and Myuran Sukumaran. The government keeps talking about the possibility of redirecting foreign aid away from Indonesia to other countries. It would be very cynical indeed if the government does take away foreign aid and actually reduce the overseas aid budget accordingly. It would be a big leg up for them in the budget context if they were to do that, and that would be extremely cynical. Australians have a really good relationship with the people of Indonesia, and Australians understand that poor people, wherever they are in the world, need our assistance. Indonesia is our nearest neighbour. The people of Indonesia who are being helped with projects for housing, for food security, for education, public health, continue to need that help. Of course we need to lift the amount of money going to Nepal. It's a shocking tragedy there with up to 10,000 people dead, and Australia needs to be doing everything we can to help. But it would be wrong-headed to take money away from poor people in Indonesia. We need both. We need to be assisting people in Indonesia and people in Nepal. It would be a terrible thing if the Abbott government used its budgetary considerations in the current context to reduce the funding for overseas aid to Indonesia.
Do you think if the government did go ahead with cutting the aid budget to Indonesia, that would further strain relations between the two countries?
It's very difficult to know what Indonesia's attitude would be to Australia cutting the aid budget, as Indonesia has taken a fairly low-key response to the criticism that Australia has levelled at it as a result of the executions. What I do think Australia needs to do is lift our profile in the region and around the world in campaigning against capital punishment. We should have our Prime Minister and Foreign Minister in every meeting they go to raising the issue of the fact that the death penalty is brutal, it is senseless, we need to be getting rid of it, and that is the issue that they should be raising at the highest levels in every meeting that they go to.
Do you think that the government's done enough by recalling the ambassador? Do you think that the government does need to do more though?
Well, I support the government withdrawing the ambassador for consultations. I also think that we could cancel the credentials of the Indonesian ambassador to Australia. I think that we should be running a campaign at the highest level against capital punishment. I think it's totally appropriate that ministerial meetings be cancelled. I also think that we ought to be encouraging the international community to investigate allegations of political interference in the judicial system, where from on high an order came down to the judges that they had to bring down a finding of the death penalty. That needs to be looked at, that whole issue of corruption in Indonesia at the highest levels, and that is something I would urge the Australian government to take up in the international community.
Just on the issue of transport, you're encouraging the federal government in the upcoming budget to spend more money on public transport. We know that clearly the Abbott government isn't keen on that. We saw that with the East-West link here in Victoria, that the government was much more willing to put money into the roads as opposed to public transport. Why do you think they would even consider that as an option in this budget?
Well, the Abbott government is really alone, not only in this region but around the world. Every modern city is actually recognising that if you want to do something about congestion, if you want to stop urban sprawl, if you want to stop increased car use, the best way of doing it is investing in public transport, investing in cycleways, in walkways. Now, we've said to the government, we are quite prepared to raise revenue for a long-term planned strategy into public transport. But the government hasn't wanted to do that. It has said we want to use all of the fuel excise going into motorways. We've said that's wrong way, go back. That is a recipe for congestion, urban sprawl and more greenhouse gas emissions. If the government wants to get strategic long-term planning right in this country, the Greens are right there to do it with them. We are not afraid to raise money to actually pay for public transport. Imagine how excited Australians would be if the government came out with a plan that said, right, in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, we are going to have these first-class transport, public transport systems. We're going to give up our fetish on motorways. People would be excited and they'd be prepared to look at ways to pay for that. The fuel excise issue in last year's budget was purely and centrally about the fact that the government wanted to raise money to waste it on more congestion, more motorways, more emissions. We said no to that, and we're here today saying to the government, put money into public transport. Let's have the long-term strategic planning. The Greens will help to raise the money to pay for that.